Hello, welcome to Working Dragon Mystic, where we discuss real, metaphysical, and occult knowledge so that you can manifest real and tangible results in your life. This week, we're going to be discussing Runic Magic, so stay tuned. Okay, so this is a video we've been trying to get out for a while, and we're going to discuss Runic Magic. Now, one of the reasons this has took so long is it's such a massive topic, and it probably should really be broken into multiple videos to go in detail, which I'm planning. But this is going to be an introduction to Runic Magic, so we're going to touch on a few hot points and that kind of thing. Now, first off, let's cover exactly what is the runes and Runic Magic. The runes are a Norse alphabet of normally 24 or sometimes seen as 18 symbols. The first being known as the Elder Futhark and the latter being known as the Younger Futhark runes. And both of these can actually be used. So you can easily go online and Google the Elder Futhark and you'll find several different variations of the rune set. And you can also Google the Younger Futhark, which you'll find a few variations of those too. That's not uncommon because from place to place there were minor variations that occurred. Now, when it comes to the runes and rune magic, first thing we need to understand is we have no accurate, detailed sources of how it was done. Most of the Norse magic that we talk about today is based off reconstruction, working with these entities and learning from these entities and testing it and getting results. In fact, the most we do actually know is they were an alphabet. We know that they're talked about reading and writing them and testing them, but there are actually instances where we see they're used for magic in the Eddas, but there's never any explanation fully on how, which we are going to get into that a bit in this video. First off, let's talk about rune magic versus runic divinations. There is a difference. In one, you're casting the runes, reading them as they fall, deciphering their meaning, listening to them and what they're saying to gain the answer to a question or even to divine the future, and in some cases even see into the past. A lot of people will use the runes and lay them out in a spread the way tarot cards are laid out. As far as we can gather, this is a very, very modern practice, but it does work and it does yield really, really good results. So I ain't knocking it. And runic divination does differ a little bit from, well, actually quite a bit, from runic magic, because it is just seeking that knowledge and that information. Now, runic magic, you're utilizing the runes to create a direct change in some way. You're not just seeking knowledge, though you could use runic magic in that way, but you are actually trying to generate a direct change. So, what do we actually know about the runes and their use? Well, not a lot, other than a few places in the Eddas where they're used, and examples of their misuse are shown. One of the biggest texts we get comes from the Havamal and the words of Odin, supposedly. Anyways, I'll go ahead and read that to you in one of my favorite translations that I found. It's from the Wanderer's Havamal by Jackson Crawford. It's his translation, and I know I've mentioned him on this channel a lot. I love his translations and his work, fabulous, and he does have a YouTube channel, so go check him out. Okay, so in stanza 144, Odin says, "Do you know how to write them? Do you know how to read them? Do you know how to paint them? Do you know how to test them? Do you know how to ask them? Do you know how to bless them? Do you know how to send them? Do you know how to offer them?" Okay, now this is actually a fascinating little passage that we find in the Havamal. It's one of the few places where it does appear he's very much talking about the runes, and he goes into some details of what the practice may have been like. So, one of the first things that is important, it is important to understand, you need to know how to read and write these runes. You need to know what they are, how they actually work, or you could be putting energy into something that you're misinterpreting. Now, paint them, when it says to paint them, a lot of people actually call this blooding them, and they do think that you have to add blood to a rune to empower it. After a lot of testing and talking to a lot of different scholars, that does not appear to be the case, because there are plenty of cases where runes are used without blood and they do still work. So when we talk about painting them, think about writing them with some form of permanent ink or marker or paint. You can actually paint them onto a surface. That's generally what I view painting to mean. I know there's plenty of people who work with the runes that's going to disagree with that, and I understand that, and I'm not saying anything against it. It's just for those who don't wish to use blood and don't want to blood the runes, as it's called. There is an option, and you do get results. In fact, I get great results all the time without using blood. So, standard marker, ink pen, or just craft paint will do just fine. Now, it's not entirely sure what is meant by do you know how to test them. I actually do think that comes into results. Do you know how to actually judge the results of your work? Do you actually know how to evaluate it and think about it critically and make any adjustments that you need to constantly improve as a rune worker? That's personally how I take it. And ask them. I really do think this is where we're getting into that runic divinations. Do you know how to speak with the runes and learn from the runes? And I think this is somewhat both in the context of learning about the runes as well as divinations. Because one of the things I learned early on is meditating and working with the rune directly and learning directly from it is one of the best ways to get information and knowledge on the runes. And that's something I teach my students to do. So I really think that's the area that this particular line is going. Now the next three, a lot of people actually say this describes more of a bloat rite. And I actually do see that. I do get that completely. Because it does say bless, send, and offer, which there tends to be a blessing in a bloat ritual. There is definitely a sending where you send out, a calling to the gods to call them in and that kind of thing. And there is also the offering to the gods. So this really does hold that. But I often wonder myself if these might actually mean empower the runes. Do you know how to charge them, bless them, and empower them so they're functional, not just an alphabet? Because this was also just an alphabet. It wasn't always a magical symbol. And send them. I think that actually could be potentially talking about, do you know how to send their power out into the world in order to create that change you're wanting? Because some runic magic is inward, true, but a lot of it is outwardly. And do you know how to offer them? And the offering one's a little tricky. It could be offering them to help another person, or this could be talking about the rune magic that goes more inward, offering them to yourself. Though there's also a rune practice where they would actually shave off the rune from what it was engraved in into a drink and imbibe it. So you could create the rune spell on that, scrape it off, and then imbibe it, so that could be viewed also as a way of offering the rune to somebody. So this one's a little sticky, but it really does fit with that bloat rite, and I cannot deny that. Okay, so we've discussed that if you want to study rune magic, you need to actually look into genuinely knowing how to read and write the runes. Not only is it fun, but even by the words of Odin, it seems important for the functionality of rune magic. Now, next in rune magic, you have what's called rune staves, or rune staves. And this is actually, sometimes it'll look like a compass. They're put together in different ways of encoding the runes, where it may not even look like a rune. And these are a lot of fun to work with and make, and some people consider it similar to sigil magic. And I do get that, because you are creating a sign or a symbol that empowers the spell you're working with. Many of these do actually fall onto like a compass looking thing with either a 4-armed cross or 8-armed cross. And some of them are actually just vertical staves. Some of them even horizontally. They can be done in a lot of ways. In some ways, the runes are connected. Sometimes the runes are disconnected. And like I said before, some of them may not even look as if they are runic. Which naturally brings us to bind runes. A bind rune is a series of 2 or more runes put together to create a single line of runes, or even a single symbol comprised of the runes, that brings all their powers together to create a single spell and purpose, and is overlaid from one another. This one is very, very much like sigil magic, and as far as I can tell, I think this practice actually does come from sigil magic, because when you look at how to write with runes, bind rune meant something completely different. It was where you would actually connect the runes in order to shorten the carving of it. So you're actually carving only one line, and that line's being shared by multiple runes. And you'd see this in many of the traditional writings and poems. So it is possible that what we know as a bind rune today wasn't, because it was just a way of writing, but we also have no way to say it was not. That thing's there. But I do know that using bind runes in this way in magic is very effective and very helpful. Now, another version of runic magic, and possibly one of my favorite, is often referred to as Galdring or Galdr, and that's where you speak the runes aloud or you intone them, and that is in and of itself a way of casting a spell, and you can actually cast runic magic in this way. So a good example of this is, let's say you're having a bad day and you want to bring some joy to your life, you want to be happy, or you want to have a good day. Well, when it comes to harmony, happiness, and joy, the rune Wunyo is actually a great one for that. So you would Galdr that a few times. I usually shoot for 9, but just a quick example, not a full 9 here. And it's just like any intoning would be. So something as simple as that can create a massive change through runic magic. The vibrations actually will resonate through your body and cause that energy to move, and you will end up feeling a lot better by the end of it, especially when you do a full 9. And like I said, I just do 9 because 9 does show up a lot in Norse mythology, and it does seem to be a very important number to them. But you could do more or less. The 9's not a hard fact. I'll just tell you right now, that's a number I use just because 9 does appear in there so much and does seem to be an important number to the Norse. Another great thing to consider when looking into runic magic is runic meditation. Now, you have 2 types of runic meditation. One where you can meditate and you're using a bind rune, one of the runes, or even a full bind rune, and you're using that as a meditation focus because you're crafting something, a sigil, or using a rune that represents the issue you're dealing with, and in which case you're utilizing that rune to help guide you through the meditation and find the answer or result that it is you're seeking, even if it's just relaxation. The other method is to meditate directly on a specific rune and learn to listen to that rune so that you can learn directly from it. And diving into the runes in such a way is really one of the best ways to really go deep into runic magic and runic knowledge, because you start pulling out gnosis and that it's just not in any book, and you will find it will yield results very quickly and very powerfully. And this is one of the main things I do teach in my runic magic class, because I want my students not to just have a list of common understandings. I want them to be able to dive in and truly venture into the runes and make it a lifelong practice if they want, but at no point do they have to just stop. They always can dive deeper and seek more information. Now, when it comes to runic magic, the go-to Norse entity or god is Odin. He is the one who found the runes, he took up the runes, he mastered the runes. He is the go-to, definitely. Though it does talk about all the gods working with the runes in one way or the other. And the next best person to work with concerning the runes would be Freya. Odin and Freya traded both of their masteries of magic in their own categories to the other to learn the other. So, if you're wanting to work with one of the Norse entities to help you understand these symbols in this alphabet and the magic that surrounds them, those are the two entities I would highly recommend working with. Now, I know this has been just kind of a shotgun of here's what rune magic is. And it is a lot. And obviously I don't have the time to go in and demo and show in detail what all these little things are. But I am planning to go into detail on individual topics at some point and try and cover them hopefully soon. In the meantime, stay tuned to the channel. We'll have a lot more on Norse coming out and the runes. I will be touching on all these different topics and going into detail on how to do them and add them to your practice if you want. So be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It helps the channel out. It's actually a great way to support the channel. Also, leave a comment below, even if it's just to say thanks for the video or hi, we'd love to hear from y'all. Or if you have any questions, drop those below. I will do my best to answer it. The channel's getting larger. I'm having trouble getting to all comments, and I do apologize, but I do try. Anyways, I'm Drake, and this has been Working Dragon Mystic. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.